In my last video, I mapped out a structural reality of Indian politics. The moment you have something to lose, you are negotiable. I looked at the history of how the state absorbs movements, then looked at Sonam Wangchuk sitting across from LG Saxena and concluded that when forced to choose between the Cockroach Janata Party and the existential negotiations for Ladakh, the answer would be Ladakh. I said the youth who thought they had him never did. Now, that video got about 200 views. And for my channel, 200 views on a long form video is practically a blockbuster, right? I usually cap out at 50 or 60. But despite those record breaking numbers, I am absolutely certain that Sonam Wangchuk did not watch it. It did not reach him. So the assumption I made was based purely on his words to the media or however he was quoted, and my prior understanding of how power operates. And admittedly, I was wrong. Now, I'm glad that unlike the time he brand ambassadored Whitehead Jr. right before Byju's collapsed, the way he gave his name to endorse Whitehead Jr., knowing that the perpetrator kind of an organization it was. This time, Sonam Wangchuk has done his homework. He called himself an honorary cockroach, then sat across from LG Saxena at the Ladakh negotiation table, said he would review CJP's origins. And having done that, he is now convinced enough to join the CJP protest in Delhi on June 6, 2026, provided the Education Minister does not resign by June 5th, 2026. So he did not pull back. Instead, the stakes just got much higher and the friction is intensifying. So here is what I am watching now. If June 6th generates real numbers, Wangchuk may influence Dipke to take up the sixth schedule demand next, digitally and on the street. That would be almost too good to be true. But given the center's rigid position on the CJP, I still see this lack of undivided attention weakening Ladakh's specific case. This brings us back to the core reality of Ladakh, a reality defined by profound interdependence. The center, acting through LG Saxena, desperately needs Wangchuk. He is the preeminent voice of the region. Bypassing him to implement policies is politically impossible, and alienating him completely risks reigniting the paralyzing mass protests that the administration is desperate to avoid. Now, conversely, Wangchuk needs the center. The constitutional safeguards he has dedicated his life to, the sixth schedule, protections for Ladakh's fragile ecology, and indigenous culture can only be granted by New Delhi. They are locked in a high stakes standoff where neither side can afford to completely destroy the other, which makes Wangchuk's decision to risk this delicate equilibrium for a separate national youth movement so volatile. But upon further reflection, here is also this thing that staying exclusively in his lane and unilaterally focusing only on Ladakh would have been even deeper trap. We are often told that activists should narrow their scope. But if you base your actions entirely on an establishment's position, especially one as erratic as our centers, your strategy becomes permanently tethered to their whims. If Wangchuk chose to stay out of everything else, whittling down his stance and abandoning broader causes that are in value and principle aligned with him just to keep the peace, it would be submission to a state that holds no moral high ground to begin with. So, when you constantly whittle yourself down to please a government, they don't reward your compliance. They see it as a weakness. Tomorrow, they will go all hands in to control you even further. It is exactly like pampering a child who is throwing a tantrum. The more you appease them just to keep the room quiet, the more out of control they become. You know, in behavioral psychology, there is this textbook example, right? It's called the operant conditioning. In operant conditioning, the behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. When the administration tried to use the Ladakh negotiations as a leverage to force Wangchuk to drop the youth movement, they were attempting to condition him. And if he had folded, which I had suspected, he would have provided positive reinforcement to their bullying, teaching the state that holding Ladakh hostage is a reliable, repeatable method to make him fall in line. By refusing to step back, Sonam Wangchuk refused to reward the conditioning. Wangchuk may be psychologically prepared for this. His decades of advocacy have built that kind of resilience in him. But again, for real Ladakhis, this growing uncertainty is the situation of a chef who has left the handi on the fire and gone out to buy rice, unsure of what may come between him and his return.